So I think it was in Bourdain. We'll talk about Bourdain at one point as well. He was a huge inspiration for me. But I think it's whether he either goes to Porto or Lisbon, and this is like 10 years ago now. And he goes, why is Portugal not... And I think it's definitely moved there since that episode. It's like, why is Portugal not on the same stratosphere as France, as Spain? And he goes, there's a long way to go to get there. I think it's definitely getting there. What did you, when you think, and we'll get on to why France is potentially, I know you love it, but it's losing is kind of je ne sais quoi, as they say. But like, what? Firstly, going into the roots and the deep cultures of Portugal, like how do you kind of, not you specifically, but how do we go in there, and how does that culture and that food begin to become more, not ubiquitous, but more known? Do you know what I mean? Because I can't think of many Portuguese restaurants in London unless you go to near Stockwell. Do you know what I mean?
That's where I live, in Stockwell.
So you by Little Portugal?
We are right there. Okay. And I have to say, there's a brilliant fish shop there, actually, and they have a restaurant out the back, but they won't let me in.
Really?
I'm a chef.
Why won't they let you in? That's a joke.
I think because I'm not Portuguese.
Okay.
I think they keep... but they, on a Saturday, they get massive tuna in. They also get an incredible fish. I don't know if it's that right on to eat it, but it's like an eel. It's black, covered, and it's a very deep, deep sea fish. And they get that in there, and they chop it all up into pieces. They say it's one of their biggest delicacies. I've never heard of it or seen it. I mean, that's just, we touch on cultures so lightly, don't we? And there's so much that it's not. I mean, I love a sardine, but there's so much more than the sardine and the custard tart, I think, in Portuguese eating. And the more it's celebrated by the people of the country, which is happening in Lisbon, there's all sorts of great things going on. One of our chefs, he's out there cooking away. But they're bringing, so they're bringing it to the tourists, then we know about it, and then more happens. And I think that's exciting in our industry to be celebrating all of this.
Then also, I think the point about you saying of if one of your chefs goes and then a chef from another restaurant in London goes, then they begin to get these ideas and it comes back and they begin to kind of infiltrate these pockets. It's like this, I can't remember who I was speaking to. It's like these little nudging things that happen. Oh, but you do it over a long enough time, and suddenly, as it is kind of happening now, from that episode with Bourdain 10, 15 years ago, whatever it was, to now, it's like way more.
Yeah. I think also we're all quite slow, and it's probably been happening deeply, but we just didn't pick up on it.
So where else did you go in? Did you go anywhere else in Lisbon? Were you just on the farm then?
We were just on the farm. Yeah. But I have been to Lisbon, it was a while ago, and I can't remember any of the restaurants' names. Yeah, but I
was trying to say something to you. I think we're all escaping.
I find Portuguese quite tricky. Yeah. The actual language is so complex.
It sounds more like, when you hear it, it sounds more kind of Eastern European. Like the sound of the accent is less.
We went to one of the brilliant seafood places, but I love it how they pile the plates up, and as you make your mess, they take them away. So it's not like you're putting it in there till it's a massive pile. They keep clearing.
And also they just keep bringing you the bread with the butter. I don't know if you get the fresh bread rolls and the butter.
Lovely. And also a custard tart there is a different thing.
It really is.
I mean, it's really not the same, is it?
There's one place I have actually remembered is called Belém, Belem, which is I think a bit further out the city, near where my mate was, and those custard tarts were like...
Yeah, we went to the place where they originally say that the custard tart was invented.
Oh, yeah.
A cafe right down by the sea, and it was enormous. Hundreds of people in there.
Yeah.
But it's got great style. Naturally, there's a great beauty and simplicity to the whole city, or to the... It's amazing. It's exciting. And it is... We can afford it.
I mean, yeah. I got back to London and it was 77 quid to get a cab and Uber.
But they're saying the tourists are ruining the city. The people who live there, they are a bit tired of the tourists.
Also, there's my friend lives in Cascais, which is like the beach town nearby, and he was saying that and even I saw this on the flight over there, it's like 4 stag do's. It's like a stag city. It's becoming like that. And I'm thinking you'd be so fucked off if that was...
Yeah, I'd be pouring paint over their heads.
Yeah, exactly.
Get out!
Yeah, get the fuck out of here, mate. Yeah. There was a guy wearing a...
That's what, and they were doing in Spain. They were pouring in Barcelona, but they would pour paint over tourists.
Yeah, but I rate that. I like that defensive culture.
Get out of town.
What? So, talk to me about like France and because I'm interviewing a guy next week called Henry Dimbleby who did
I know him.
really amazing guy, and he actually said I think it was in his. No, it wasn't his book. It was on a podcast. I was literally listening to this morning. He was like, I believe London has kind of supplanted France right now, like not historically, but in terms of the restaurants and the quality of food. He thinks kind of, his exact words were, France rested on their laurels. What would you kind of alluded, Margot, earlier to France not being what it was. Let's try and kind of unpack that.
I blame Michelin star.
Really?
Yep. I think Michelin star has a lot to answer for, and setting out, first of all, to get your stars, you have to do certain things. So you need your amuse-bouche, and you need, years ago, you needed carpet in the loo. I mean, really? And, you know, and I mean, who are these people to put these rules down? And then so everyone's trying to build to get the star, because if you haven't got a star, who are you? And so all the lovely local restaurants in the countryside, like the places where Elizabeth David would have gone, you know, you stumbled upon, she talks about an omelette and a glass of wine, they have disappeared. I think it's also to do with the hard work in restaurants and what you get out of it. So there's that sort of thing involved in it as well. And now in the countryside, this is not so much in Paris, because Paris there is actually a lot going on, and it's a lot to do with the Asian kids who grew up in Paris with parents running little restaurants. So there is culturally a lot of really exciting things happening in Paris. But in the countryside, it seems that it's either a big chateau, and there are also places we went to stay in the most beautiful town. There was pizzas which were bought in, or bags of food that they buy in from great big huge factories. It's all, and then you put it in your sous vide and you heat up some stew. They're not even making the food. I think probably at home the French are eating well, the markets are good, so they're shopping well. Yeah. They've got amazing produce, they know what they're doing, but they're losing, they don't, if they're not careful, they will lose their own. They need to let more simple cooking happen. I mean, where would you go and have cassoulet in France now? I mean, in winter. I mean, you know, some of the older restaurants, I mean, there are places, of course, but it's not as easy to find. I mean, when you go to Italy, you stumble across a pretty good restaurant quite easily, whereas France, I think it's much more difficult. That is what I'm trying to say. And now in Britain, you can sometimes stumble across pubs all over the countryside. That we're trying to build that here now, I think.
I think this, you kind of teed me up perfectly, Marcus, because I want to go back to the 90s and talk about you and Fergus meeting and like the kind of the genesis of nose to kind of tail cookery. Because obviously now it's, you know, kind of everyone's doing a similar version of that, but back then you guys were complete kind of pioneers with what you were doing. And I interviewed a guy a guy called Jeremy Torres who did Union Coffee, and he brought coffee to the UK. Yeah. And I was like, I want to almost go back to the 1990s, mate, and kind of paint the picture of what London and actually the UK was like. He was like, if you wanted a coffee back then, you'd have to go to either a hotel or like an Italian restaurant. And then he kind of came into the UK, Seattle Coffee Company. Then that led to Starbucks, and it begins. It was kind of similar time to you guys. I'd love to know if you could paint a picture, or
Illy might say they were around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's the best coffee, but Illy has been around a while.
Yeah. Illy has been around a while, and I think let me caveat that he was saying craft kind of craft coffee movement. Yeah.